Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. The career and financial decisions you make are your own responsibility. This presentation is based on my experience and research within the United States tech industry, but you should always conduct your own thorough research before making any significant investment in your education or career. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Michael. Michael was a manager at a big box retail store in Ohio, making maybe $50,000 a year if he hit his bonus. He was smart, a hard worker, but he was tired. Tired of unpredictable schedules, tired of dealing with angry customers, tired of feeling like his career had hit a ceiling made of concrete. Every night, he'd scroll through his phone and see ads. Ads promising a new life. Become a cloud engineer in 16 weeks. Guaranteed six-figure tech job. No experience necessary. The pictures were always of smiling people working from home, laptops open by a sunny window. The dream. So Michael took the plunge. He researched a few boot camps, picked one with glowing reviews and a slick website, and signed on the dotted line for a $15,000 loan. For the next 4 months, his life was a blur of AWS consoles, YAML files, and late-night study sessions fueled by cheap coffee. He earned 2 certifications. He built a cookie-cutter portfolio project just like everyone else in his cohort. He graduated with a head full of hope and a brand new LinkedIn profile that proudly proclaimed him a cloud engineer. And then nothing. He sent out 50 applications. 100. 200. The only replies were automated rejections. The few phone screens he landed went cold the moment they asked about his professional experience. Recruiters would say, "Your bootcamp projects are great, but we're looking for someone who's worked on a production environment." 6 months after graduating, with his loan payments starting to kick in, Michael was back at the retail store, asking a new trainee if they'd faced the shelves yet. He had the debt, the certificate, but not the career. He wasn't living the dream. He was living in a nightmare, wondering what on earth went wrong. Michael's story isn't a rare exception. It's a silent epidemic happening across the United States right now. And maybe some of it sounds familiar to you. Maybe you're in a job that feels like a dead end. You see the tech salaries, you hear about the incredible work-life balance, the remote opportunities, the sheer demand for skilled people, and you want in. You deserve in. You're smart enough, you're willing to work hard, but the path isn't clear. Feels like trying to cross a canyon. On one side is your current reality. On the other is a 6-figure job at a company you're actually proud of. And in the middle of that canyon are the bootcamp salespeople, promising to build you a golden bridge for a hefty toll. They sell you the destination, but they get a little fuzzy on the details of the journey. They tell you about the explosive growth of the cloud market, and they're not wrong. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. They are the foundational pillars of the modern economy. Nearly every company, from Netflix to your local pizza shop, relies on the cloud. The demand for people who can build, manage, and secure that infrastructure is astronomical. There are tens of thousands of open cloud positions in the US at this very moment. That part is true. The lie, the dangerous half-truth, is that a 16-week bootcamp is the automatic guaranteed key to unlock one of those jobs. So this is why we're here. This isn't going to be another video that just tells you bootcamps are great, or bootcamps are a scam. That's lazy and it doesn't help you. Our mission today is to pull back the curtain on the multi-billion-dollar tech bootcamp industry in the United States. We are going to arm you with the truth, the unfiltered, unmarketed, and sometimes uncomfortable truth, so you can make the right decision for your bank account and your career. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what these bootcamps are actually selling. You'll understand the 3 biggest traps that cause graduates like Michael to fail. You'll learn the critical questions you must ask before ever giving a bootcamp a single dollar. And most importantly, you'll have a clear framework to decide if a bootcamp is the right tool for you, or if there's a cheaper, more effective path to your goal. I'm not here to sell you a course or a bootcamp. I'm here to give you the clarity you've been looking for. So let's start by dissecting the product itself. What are you really buying for your $15,000? It comes down to 3 things: a curriculum, a community, and career services. First, the curriculum. This is the roadmap of what you'll learn. A typical cloud bootcamp will start with fundamentals, a little bit of Linux, some networking basics, maybe some Python scripting. Then they'll dive deep into one of the major cloud providers, usually AWS since it holds the largest market share. You'll learn about their core services: EC2 for virtual servers, S3 for storage, VPC for networking, IAM for security. You'll probably touch on more advanced topics like containers with Docker and Kubernetes, and infrastructure as code with Terraform. The goal is to cram an immense amount of information into your head fast and prepare you to pass 1 or 2 certification exams like the AWS Solutions Architect Associate. On the surface, this sounds fantastic. It's a structured path. You don't have to spend months figuring out what to learn. They give you the list. But here's the first critical problem: the pace. They call it immersive. A better word would be brutal. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. You're learning about complex networking one day and abstract database theory the next. There is very little time for the information to sink in, to move from short-term memorization to deep, internalized understanding. You might learn what a tool does, but you rarely have the time to learn why it's used, or to experiment with it, break it and fix it, which is the only way real learning happens. This breakneck pace is a recipe for surface-level knowledge, which experienced hiring managers can spot from a mile away. Second, you're buying a community. You'll have instructors, teaching assistants, and a cohort of fellow students all going through the same struggle. This can be incredibly valuable. Having people to ask questions, to work on projects with, and to keep you motivated when you feel like quitting is a powerful force. For many people who have tried to self-study and failed, the structure and accountability of a cohort is the single biggest selling point. It forces you to show up and do the work. Don't underestimate this. But you have to ask yourself, is that accountability worth $15,000? Are there other ways to find a community through online forums, local meetups, or Discord groups for a fraction of the cost? And third, the component that gets the most marketing hype, career services. This is the team that promises to help you land that dream job. They'll help you polish your resume, they'll run you through mock interviews, and they might have a network of hiring partners. This sounds like the secret sauce, the magic wand that turns your bootcamp certificate into a job offer. But we need to look at this with a cynical eye. Resume polishing often means plugging your information into a standard template that looks identical to every other graduate's. Mock interviews can be hit or miss, often conducted by staff who haven't been on a real tech interview themselves in years. And those hiring partners? Sometimes it's a strong network, but often it's just a list of companies that have agreed to receive resumes from the bootcamp, with no special consideration given. And then there's the infamous job guarantee. Read the fine print. Seriously, demand to see it before you sign anything. You'll often find it's a minefield of stipulations. You must apply to 20 jobs a week. You must attend every networking event. You can't turn down any interview, even if it's for a low-paying help desk role 2 hours away. If you fail to meet even one of these dozens of requirements, the guarantee is void. It's less of a guarantee for you and more of a marketing gimmick for them. So when you strip it all down, you're paying a premium price for a rushed curriculum, a temporary community, and career services of questionable effectiveness. It's a package deal. And for some people, that package is exactly what they need to force a life change. But for many others, it's a $15,000 shortcut that leads right back to where they started, only now with a mountain of debt. The question is, which group will you be in? How do you ensure you become the success story, not the cautionary tale? That's what we're going to figure out. To do that, we first have to pull back the curtain and look at the bootcamp model itself. Not the flashy ads, not the glowing testimonials, but the raw mechanics of the machine you're thinking about stepping into. Because that's what it is. A machine engineered for a very specific purpose. And if you don't understand how it's designed to work, it can chew you up and spit you out. At its core, every tech bootcamp, whether it's for cloud, coding, or cybersecurity, is built on a simple, powerful promise. I call it the golden triangle. 3 points that create an almost irresistible offer for anyone feeling stuck in their career. The first point of the triangle is speed. This is the big one. They're selling you a time machine. Instead of the traditional 4-year, $120,000 journey through a university, they offer a 12, 16, or 24-week hyperspace jump directly into a new career. They promise to compress a decade of career progression into the span of a single season. It's the ultimate life hack. Get the skills, get the job, get the salary, and do it all before your friends in traditional night school have even finished their first semester. The second point of the triangle is skills. This is the substance behind the speed. Bootcamps claim they've stripped away all the academic fluff. There are no mandatory literature classes, no abstract theoretical math. It is 100% focused on the practical, hands-on job-ready skills that companies are desperately hiring for right now. They aren't teaching you the history of computing. They're teaching you how to configure an AWS S3 bucket, how to deploy a serverless application using Lambda, how to manage user permissions with IAM, and how to build a secure network in the cloud with VPCs. The promise is that on day one of your new job, you won't just have a degree. You'll have a toolkit. You'll be able to sit down and actually do the work. And that leads to the third and most critical point of the golden triangle: placement. The job, the six-figure salary, the career services, the resume workshops, the mock interviews, the connections to hiring partners. This is the destination the entire journey is designed to reach. They aren't just selling education. They are selling an outcome, a tangible result, a new line on your W-2 form. 94% placement rate within 6 months. Average starting salary of over $100,000. These aren't just statistics. They are the validation of the entire model. They are the proof that the speed and the skills actually translate into a real-world life-changing career. Speed skills placement. It's a brilliant, compelling pitch. And when it works, it's nothing short of miraculous. But here's the secret. Each point of that golden triangle has a shadow side, a hidden cost, a fine print that you have to understand if you want to succeed. Let's start with speed. The promise of a 16-week transformation is intoxicating. But what does that intensity actually mean for you, the student? It means you are drinking from a fire hose every single day for 4 straight months. It's not a shortcut in terms of effort. It's a compression of effort. Imagine taking 2 years of college-level material and cramming it into a single semester. That's a boot camp. The people who fail, the ones who become the cautionary tales, are almost always the ones who mistake fast for easy. They think they can coast through it doing the bare minimum. They try to keep their demanding full-time job, maintain a busy social life, and somehow absorb a mountain of complex technical information on the side. It is a recipe for disaster. The reality of a boot camp is an all-consuming experience. It's 8 to 10 hours of instruction and labs during the day, followed by another 3 to 4 hours of homework and projects at night. Your weekends are gone. Your hobbies are on hold. It is a full-on mental marathon, and many people are simply not prepared for that level of sustained high-intensity focus. They hit a wall in week 5, fall behind, and never catch up. The speed that was once the main attraction becomes a crushing, relentless pressure that forces them out. Then there's the second point: skills. The focus on practical, job-ready abilities is a huge advantage. You learn by doing, which is fantastic. But the shadow side of this approach is the potential for a weak foundation. Bootcamps teach you how to use the tools. They give you the step-by-step instructions to build things in AWS or Azure, but they often don't have the time to teach you the deep, underlying principles of why those tools work the way they do. Think of it like this. A bootcamp can teach you how to follow a recipe to bake a perfect cake. You'll learn to measure the flour, cream the butter and sugar, and set the oven to the right temperature. And you will produce a great cake. A computer science degree, on the other hand, teaches you the chemistry of how gluten develops, the physics of heat transfer in an oven, and the molecular science behind the Maillard reaction that makes the cake brown. Who's the better baker? Well, for making a standard cake, it doesn't matter. Both get the job done. But what happens when something goes wrong? What happens when you're out of eggs and need a substitute? The recipe follower is stuck. The person who understands the food science knows that the purpose of the egg is to bind and leaven, and they can creatively solve the problem with applesauce or yogurt. In the world of cloud computing, this is the difference between knowing how to click the buttons to set up a network and understanding the fundamental principles of the TCP/IP protocol, subnetting, and routing. The bootcamp grad can build the network, but when it breaks in a weird and unexpected way, the engineer with the deeper foundational knowledge is the one who can truly troubleshoot it. The most successful bootcamp graduates are the ones who recognize this gap. They spend their nights and weekends not just doing the assigned projects, but diving deeper, reading the documentation, and teaching themselves the computer science fundamentals that the curriculum has to skip over. They don't just learn the recipe, they learn how to cook. And finally, we come to the most important point of the triangle: placement. That 94% job placement rate. That 6-figure starting salary. This is where the marketing meets reality, and the gap can be jarring. First, you have to ask, what does placement actually mean? Is it a full-time salaried cloud engineer role with benefits? Or does it include a 3-month, part-time, low-paying contract role doing basic IT help desk work for a company that happens to use a little bit of cloud infrastructure? Does an unpaid internship count? Many bootcamps have very flexible definitions. Their goal is to get that percentage as high as possible. So they might count any job in any tech-adjacent field at any pay rate as a successful placement. You could pay $17,000 for a cloud computing bootcamp, only to be placed in a $20 per hour help desk job. And on paper, you are a success story. You are part of the 94%. But does that feel like success to you? Does that fulfill the promise that led you to sign up in the first place? And what about that average salary? Averages can be incredibly misleading. If a bootcamp places one exceptional, genius-level student at Google for $180,000 a year, and 9 other students in jobs making $60,000, the average salary is a very healthy $72,000. But that number doesn't reflect the reality for 90% of the graduates. The bootcamp isn't lying, but they are presenting the data in the most favorable light possible. The truth is, the career services offered by bootcamps are not a magic wand. They are a resource. They can polish your resume, drill you on interview questions, and maybe pass your name along to a few companies. But they cannot get you a job. Only you can do that. The graduates who land the top-tier cloud jobs are the ones who treat the job hunt like it's the final, most important module of the bootcamp. They network relentlessly. They build impressive portfolio projects that go far beyond the class assignments. They contribute to open-source projects. They don't just rely on the bootcamp's career services. They hustle harder than everyone else. So the golden triangle: speed, skills, and placement is the promise. But underneath it lies a more complex reality. The intensity, the foundations, and the hustle. The promise is what they sell you, but the reality is what you have to live through to succeed. We've dissected the promise. We see the shiny exterior and the complex machinery inside. But what does it actually feel like to be in the trenches? What does a day, a week, a month inside one of these high-intensity programs really look like? And more importantly, what are the unspoken truths the admissions counselors won't tell you before you sign that check? That's where we're going next. Let's pull back the curtain. Imagine it's day 1. You've paid your tuition, you've logged into the portal, and you're staring at a welcome message from your instructor. There's a surge of excitement, a feeling that your life is about to change. And then the first module drops. It's not a gentle introduction. It's a full-on cognitive assault. This is the first unspoken truth of a cloud bootcamp. There is no shallow end of the pool. You are pushed in at the deep end. And the expectation is that you learn to swim while a fire hose of information is aimed directly at your face. That first week is all about breaking down your old assumptions about computers. You think you know what a server is? Forget it. You're learning about virtualization, hypervisors, and the fundamental magic that allows one giant physical machine in a data center in Virginia to pretend it's 100 different tiny computers. You'll be thrown into the command line, that intimidating black screen with a blinking cursor. You'll learn commands like ls, cd, grep. It feels like learning a dead language at first, but this is the native tongue of the cloud. You'll be configuring networks, not by plugging in cables, but by typing IP addresses and subnet masks. It's abstract, it's confusing, and it's relentless. By Friday of week 1, your brain feels like a bowl of scrambled eggs. You've learned more in 5 days than you did in an entire semester of college, and you're left with one terrifying thought. Can I actually do this for another 11 weeks? Then comes month 1, which can be summarized in 3 letters: AWS, or Azure, or GCP. But for the vast majority of US-based bootcamps, it's Amazon Web Services. They don't ease you in. They introduce you to what I call the holy trinity of the cloud. First, EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. This is the workhorse. It's the virtual server you'll be building everything on. You'll learn how to launch one, connect to it, and install software on it. Feels like magic the first time you do it. Second, S3 Simple Storage Service. Think of it as an infinite hard drive in the sky. You'll learn how to upload files, set permissions, and even host a simple website directly from it. And third, the one that trips everyone up, VPC Virtual Private Cloud. This is your own private, isolated section of the AWS cloud. It's networking. It's security. It's where you define the rules of the road for all your other services. And here's the second unspoken truth. In this first month, you will develop a dangerous illusion of competence. You're following along with the instructor, you're clicking the buttons in the AWS console, you're launching servers and creating storage buckets. It's working. You feel like a genius. But you're not. You're following a recipe. You're a line cook, not a chef. You know what to click, but you don't yet understand why you're clicking it, or what's happening under the hood. The bootcamp is designed this way. It has to build your confidence and give you some quick wins before it gets truly difficult. But don't be fooled. The real learning hasn't even started yet. The midpoint of the bootcamp, usually around week 5 or 6, is what I call the great filter. This is where the pace, which was already blistering, somehow accelerates. The concepts become deeply layered and abstract. You're not just launching one server. You're learning how to make it scale automatically based on traffic. You're not just storing files. You're architecting complex database solutions with RDS. You're diving headfirst into the terrifying world of IAM, identity and access management, which is a universe of policies, roles, and permissions that can make your head spin. This is the point where imposter syndrome, which was a quiet whisper before, becomes a deafening roar. You look at the person next to you who seems to be getting it. You read messages in the class Slack channel from students who are already experimenting with advanced concepts, and you're still trying to figure out why your security group isn't working. This is the unspoken truth number 3, and it's the most important one. Everyone feels this way. The bootcamp is designed to push you to your absolute cognitive limit. The feeling of being overwhelmed and stupid is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you are learning at the intended pace. The students who succeed are not the ones who find it easy. They are the ones who push through this wall of doubt. They ask the dumb questions. They stay late. They accept that they are temporary idiots on the path to becoming experts. Surviving this midpoint is the true test of the bootcamp. If you make it through the great filter, something incredible begins to happen. The curriculum shifts from clicking buttons in a web interface to writing code. Not application code like a software developer, but infrastructure code. You're introduced to tools like Terraform or AWS CloudFormation. And this is the aha moment. This is where you level up. Instead of manually clicking through 27 steps to create a network, a server, and a database, you write a single script that does it all for you. Perfectly. Every single time. This is infrastructure as code, or IAC, and it is the single most important, most marketable skill you will learn. This is the bridge from being a cloud hobbyist to a cloud professional. No serious tech company in the US builds their cloud environment by hand. It's all automated. Learning IAC is like Neo seeing the Matrix for the first time. All those individual services, EC2, S3, VPC, RDS, stop being separate things you're learning. You start to see how they connect, how they flow into one another. You're no longer just following the recipe. You're starting to write your own. This is where the real engineering begins, and it's what separates a bootcamp grad who gets a job from one who doesn't. Finally, you reach the last few weeks. The lectures taper off and you're assigned the capstone project. This is your Super Bowl. All the theory, all the labs, all the late nights have been leading to this. You're typically tasked with building a real-world, multi-tiered application in the cloud from scratch. A blog with a database and a scalable front end. A photo-sharing app with user authentication. The project itself almost doesn't matter. What matters is the process. And here's the final unspoken truth of the bootcamp experience. Your capstone project will be a beautiful, glorious, frustrating mess. Nothing will work the first time. You will spend 6 hours debugging a single typo in a configuration file. You will accidentally delete your entire network 30 minutes before a deadline. You will feel the crushing weight of putting all the pieces together yourself, without the instructor holding your hand. And this is the entire point. The project isn't designed to be a perfect execution of what you learned. It's designed to simulate a real job. It's meant to teach you the most critical skill of all. How to troubleshoot. How to read error messages, how to use Google effectively, how to break a massive problem down into tiny manageable pieces. Completing that project, deploying that final line of code and seeing it work, is a feeling of accomplishment unlike any other. You've done it. You've survived the fire hose. You've climbed the wall of imposter syndrome. You've built something real. You now have a certificate in your hand and a project you can put on your resume. You have been fundamentally transformed from who you were just 3 months ago. But this brings us to the coldest, hardest reality of all. You've graduated. You have the skills. You have the portfolio. Does any of that actually matter to a hiring manager? How do you take this intense, bootcamp-forged knowledge and translate it into a 6-figure job offer? Because the bootcamp is over, but the real challenge, the job hunt, is just beginning. Let's be brutally honest. That bootcamp certificate? It's a receipt. It proves you paid your tuition and sat through the classes. It is not a golden ticket. In the eyes of a hiring manager, it puts you in a bucket with thousands of other people who also just finished a bootcamp. So how do you climb out of that bucket and get noticed? You have to understand the game you're now playing. The game isn't about learning anymore. It's about marketing. And you are the product. Your first weapon in this marketing campaign is your resume. Most bootcamp grads make a catastrophic mistake right here. They treat their resume like a final exam, a list of all the things they learned. They write, proficient in AWS, including EC2, S3, RDS, Lambda, and IAM. They list, familiar with Python, Terraform, Docker, and Kubernetes. A hiring manager reads that and their eyes glaze over. They've seen that exact list 100 times today. It tells them what the bootcamp taught you, not what you can do. Imagine you're the hiring manager. You have a posting for a junior cloud engineer that just got 250 applications in 48 hours. You don't have time to read 250 life stories. You have 10 seconds, maybe 15 if your coffee is strong, to decide if a resume is worth a closer look. You're not looking for a list of technologies. You're looking for proof of impact. You're looking for results. So let's rebuild that resume from the ground up the right way. Instead of listing AWS EC2 and S3, you write, deployed a scalable, fault-tolerant web application on AWS, leveraging EC2 for compute and S3 for static asset hosting, resulting in 99.9% uptime during load testing. See the difference? One is a noun. The other is a story of accomplishment. You're no longer a student who learned a thing. You're an engineer who built a thing. This is the absolute key. Reframe every single point on your resume to answer the hiring manager's silent, screaming question. So what? You learned Terraform? So what? Automated the provisioning of cloud infrastructure using Terraform, reducing manual setup time by 90% and ensuring consistent, repeatable environments. You use Docker? So what? Containerized a monolithic application using Docker, simplifying the development pipeline and decreasing deployment failures by 75%. You need to think like a business owner, not a student. Businesses don't hire you to know things. They hire you to solve problems. Your resume must be a collection of problems you have solved. Use numbers. Use percentages. Use action verbs. Quantify your impact, even if it's on a personal project. You didn't just build a project. You engineered a solution. You architected a system. You optimized a process. Language matters. This brings us to the projects section, the heart and soul of a bootcamp grad's resume. And this is where 99% of grads look identical. Everyone has the serverless resume website or the 3-tier web application. Having those projects is fine, it's the expected baseline. But just listing them is not enough. You have to make them yours. The project description is your chance to shine. Don't just describe what the project is. Describe why you built it, what technical challenges you faced, and how you overcame them. Instead of project to-do list app, built with React, Node.js, and a DynamoDB backend on AWS. Try this. Project, serverless task manager. Architected a fully serverless application to explore event-driven design patterns. Overcame a significant challenge in managing cold starts with AWS Lambda by implementing provision concurrency, which improved API response times by 60% under initial load. The entire infrastructure is defined as code using the AWS CDK for automated deployment and teardown. That second description does so much more work. It shows initiative to explore event-driven design patterns. It shows problem-solving skills, overcame a significant challenge. It shows you understand performance metrics, improved API response times by 60%. And it shows you follow modern best practices. Infrastructure is defined as code. Someone reading that doesn't see a student who followed a tutorial. They see a budding engineer who thinks critically. And where do these projects live? In your portfolio on GitHub. Let me be clear. A link to your GitHub is not optional. And when a hiring manager clicks that link, what they see can make or break your chances. A graveyard of half-finished tutorial projects with generic names is a red flag. Your GitHub is not a code junkyard. It's your professional showroom. Every single project repository needs a fantastic README file. The README is your sales pitch for that project. It should explain what the project is, why you built it, how to set it up and run it, and include a simple architectural diagram if you can. This shows you're not just a coder, you're a communicator. You care about making your work understandable to others, a critical skill in any team environment. Your code should be clean, well-commented, and organized. It demonstrates professionalism and a respect for the craft. Now let's talk about the gatekeeper you have to get past before a human even sees this beautifully crafted resume. The Applicant Tracking System, or ATS. These are the software robots that scan your resume for keywords before passing it on to a real person. If your resume doesn't have the right words, you are automatically rejected. It's a brutal and personal system, but you have to play the game. Look at the job description. If it lists CI/CD, Jenkins, and Ansible, you had better make sure those exact words are on your resume, assuming you have the skills. Tailor your resume for every single job application. It's more work, yes, but sending 10 highly tailored applications is infinitely more effective than shotgun blasting 200 generic ones into the void. Use a tool like JobScan to compare your resume against a job description and see your keyword match rate. Finally, we have to address the most dreaded phrase in all of tech. Requires 3 to 5 years of experience. Your heart sinks. You just graduated a 12-week boot camp. How can you possibly compete? You have to redefine experience. Experience is not just a 9-to-5 job you were paid for. Experience is the practical application of skills to solve problems. Your capstone project? That's experience. The personal project you spent 60 hours on wrestling with IAM permissions? That's experience. Contributing to an open source project? That's gold-plated experience. Setting up a complex home lab to experiment with Kubernetes? That is absolutely experience. You must present these things on your resume with the same confidence as a paid job. Create a section called Cloud Engineering Experience or Project Experience. Frame it just like a professional role. Describe the project, the technologies used, and, most importantly, the quantifiable outcomes you achieved. You are shifting the conversation away from where you worked and onto what you can do. You are demonstrating passion, initiative, and the ability to learn independently. 3 of the most valuable traits in a junior engineer. By doing all of this, you transform your resume from a passive historical document into an active, compelling marketing tool. It's no longer just a piece of paper, it's a strategic weapon designed to do one thing. Get you past the robots and onto the phone with a human being. You've optimized your resume. Your GitHub is pristine. You've packaged your bootcamp knowledge into a compelling story of accomplishment. You start applying. But what if there was a way to bypass the resume black hole almost entirely? A way to get your story directly to the people who make hiring decisions without ever having to go through the front door of an applicant tracking system? There is. And it has nothing to do with the code you write and everything to do with the connections you build. This is the single biggest cheat code for getting a job in tech. And it's shocking how many bootcamp grads completely ignore it. They spend 3 months grinding on Terraform and Python, but 0 hours learning how to talk to a human being. They treat the job hunt like a lottery, firing off hundreds of applications into the digital void, praying one of them sticks. But the pros? The people who land 6-figure cloud jobs just weeks after graduating? They don't play the lottery. They walk in the back door. This back door has a name: the hidden job market. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just human nature. Studies consistently show that anywhere from 50 to 80% of all jobs are filled through networking. They never get posted on LinkedIn, Indeed, or the company's career page. Why? Because hiring is risky, expensive, and time-consuming. A hiring manager would much rather hire someone recommended by a trusted employee than take a chance on a random resume from a pile of 500. A referral is a pre-vetted candidate. It's a signal of quality. Your goal as a bootcamp grad is not to have the best resume in that pile of 500. Your goal is to not be in the pile at all. So, how does a bootcamp help you access this hidden market? This is one of the most critical questions you need to ask, because the promises and the reality can be worlds apart. Every bootcamp on the planet will tell you they have an extensive hiring network. They'll flash logos of Google, Amazon, and Microsoft on their homepage. But you have to dig deeper. For the vast majority of bootcamps, this network is little more than a dusty spreadsheet of companies where an alumnus got a job once, maybe 3 years ago. Their career services consist of a weekly email with a link to a LinkedIn job search and a quick grammar check on your resume. This is the illusion of support. It's a marketing tactic designed to make you feel safe, but it leaves you completely on your own when it matters most. However, a small handful of elite, top-tier bootcamps are different. Their network is real, and it is a powerful engine for employment. These programs are often incredibly selective, sometimes with acceptance rates in the single digits. Their reputation is so strong that companies actively compete to hire their graduates. For these programs, career services means a dedicated team that has personal relationships with hiring managers. It means exclusive hiring days where top tech companies send their engineering leads to interview the entire graduating class. It means direct, warm introductions. This is the gold standard. But it's rare and it's expensive. So what about everyone else? If you attend a solid but not quite elite bootcamp, are you out of luck? Absolutely not. Because the most valuable network a bootcamp gives you isn't their list of hiring partners. It's the people you're in the trenches with every day. Your instructors and your classmates. Your instructors are often current industry professionals. They have colleagues, they have friends, they have a real living network. Your classmates are your future network. In 2 years, that person sitting next to you struggling with Kubernetes might be a senior engineer at Netflix with the power to refer you. Treating these relationships as transactional is the single biggest mistake you can make. These are the seeds of your future career. But you can't just rely on them. You have to build your own network from scratch. And you have to start on day 1 of your bootcamp, not day 90. Here's the playbook. First, you need a radical mindset shift. Networking is not about asking for things. It is not begging for a job. It's about being curious, building genuine relationships, and finding ways to provide value to others long before you ever ask for anything in return. Think of it like this. You don't walk up to a stranger and ask to borrow $1,000. You build a friendship over time, based on mutual trust and respect. Then when you're in a tough spot, that friend is happy to help. The job hunt works the same way. Your primary tool for this is LinkedIn, but most people use it completely wrong. They treat it like a digital resume and a cold calling machine. They fire off generic connection requests and then immediately hit their new connection with a, "Can you help me get a job?" message. This is the equivalent of asking for that $1,000 on a first date. Feels desperate, it's transactional, and it gets you ignored or blocked. The professional approach is different. It starts with your profile. Your headline should not be student at XYZ Bootcamp or aspiring cloud engineer. That screams, "I want something from you." It needs to be forward-looking and value-oriented. Something like, cloud engineer focused on AWS and automation building secure, scalable infrastructure. Or from healthcare to the cloud, leveraging a decade of analytics experience to solve problems with data on AWS. Tell a story. Show your trajectory. Next, you connect with intention. Don't just add recruiters. Find the people who are doing the job you want at the companies you want to work for. Find cloud engineers, site reliability engineers, and solutions architects. And when you send a connection request, you must personalize it. Every single time, go to their profile. Find a recent post they wrote, an article they shared, or a project they mentioned. Your connection request should be simple. "Hi Sarah. I saw your recent post on the challenges of implementing FinOps in a large organization and found it really insightful. As someone currently deep diving into cloud cost management in my bootcamp, I'd love to connect and follow your work." That's it. You aren't asking for anything. You're giving a compliment and showing genuine interest. It's a human-to-human interaction. Once they accept, do not immediately pitch yourself. Your only job is to be a positive, intelligent presence in their professional life. Comment on their posts with thoughtful questions. Share their work if you find it valuable. Play the long game. After you've built a tiny bit of rapport, maybe you've exchanged a few comments over a week or two, you can deploy the secret weapon, the informational interview. This is a low-stakes, high-impact move. You send them a message. "Hey David, I've really been enjoying your insights on container orchestration. As someone transitioning into the cloud space, I'm trying to learn as much as I can from experienced professionals like yourself. Would you be open to a brief 15-minute chat sometime in the next few weeks so I could hear a bit about your journey? I know you're busy, so no pressure at all if the timing isn't right." The magic here is in the framing. You're not asking for a job. You're asking for advice. People love to give advice. It makes them feel smart and helpful. When you get on that call, you have to be prepared. Do not ask, "So are you hiring?" That breaks the contract. Instead, ask smart questions. What does a typical day look like in your role? What's a skill you thought would be important but turned out not to be? What are the biggest challenges your team is working on right now? You are gathering intelligence. At the very end of the call, you thank them for their time and plant the seed. "This has been incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. Based on our conversation, it sounds like a fantastic place to work. If a role that aligns with my skills ever opens up on your team, I'd love to be considered." Now, when a cloud engineer role does open up, you're not a random resume. You're David, that sharp bootcamp grad who asks great questions. You've bypassed the entire ATS and created a warm lead directly with someone on the hiring team. Do this 2 or 3 times a week for the duration of your bootcamp, and you'll have a pipeline of dozens of warm contacts by the time you graduate. This is how you get hired. Not by spamming the easy apply button, but by building a bridge of genuine human connection directly to the team you want to join. You've built the bridge to the hiring manager. Now you have to walk across it. And that walk is paved with a killer resume, a portfolio that screams "hire me," and the ability to ace the most dreaded part of the process, the technical interview. That's where we're going next. Let's start with that resume. Think of it less as a document and more as a high-impact 60-second commercial for your skills. Because 60 seconds is being generous. The reality in the US tech market is that your resume has about 6 to 7 seconds to survive its first and most brutal gatekeeper, the machine. I'm talking about the Applicant Tracking System, or ATS. This is the software that 99% of Fortune 500 companies, and a huge chunk of all other companies, use to scan your resume before a human ever lays eyes on it. It's a robotic bouncer, and its only job is to look for reasons to throw you out of the line. It doesn't care about your passion. It doesn't care about your grit. It's looking for keywords. It's checking for formatting it can understand. If you submit a beautifully designed PDF with fancy columns and graphics, the ATS might see nothing but garbled text and toss it in the digital trash. This is the first great filter, and it's where countless bootcamp grads fail. They have the skills, but they can't get past the bot. So, how do you beat the machine? First, you tailor. Every single time. You pull the exact keywords and phrases from the job description and weave them into your resume. If the job asks for AWS Lambda and infrastructure as code, those exact phrases better be in your resume. Not just serverless or scripting. Match the language. Second, keep the formatting clean and simple. Single column, standard fonts, clear headings for experience, projects, and skills. Let your accomplishments be the impressive part, not your font choice. And for a bootcamp grad, the project section is your experience section. This is your prime real estate. Don't just list what you did. Quantify it. Instead of saying, built a web application hosted on AWS, you say, architected and deployed a highly available 3-tier web application on AWS using EC2, RDS, and S3, resulting in 99.9% uptime. Instead of, use serverless functions, you say, developed and implemented AWS Lambda functions that processed user data, reducing compute costs by 40% compared to a traditional server-based approach. See the difference? One is a task. The other is a result. One says you followed instructions. The other says you delivered value. Hiring managers hire for value. Once your resume gets past the bot, it lands on a human's desk. And the first thing that human will do after a quick scan is look for your portfolio link. This is your second pillar. Your portfolio is not a graveyard for your class assignments. It is a living, breathing testament to your ability to solve problems with cloud technology. It's the proof. A portfolio full of cookie-cutter projects from the bootcamp curriculum is a red flag. It shows you can follow a tutorial. It doesn't show you can think. A killer portfolio has 3 to 4 deeply impressive projects, and each one tells a story. The most important part of your portfolio isn't just the code. It's the README file in your GitHub repository. This is your sales pitch for the project. It needs to explain the why. What business problem does this project solve? Maybe you built a system to automate the processing and storage of large image files for a hypothetical photography business. Don't just say that. Explain the problem. Manually uploading, resizing, and categorizing thousands of photos is time-consuming and prone to error. Then explain your solution, the how. I built an event-driven serverless pipeline using AWS S3, Lambda, and Rekognition. When a photographer uploads an image to an S3 bucket, it automatically triggers a Lambda function that resizes the image for web and mobile, and uses Rekognition to automatically generate tags based on the image content, like wedding, sunset, or portrait. The results are then stored in a DynamoDB table for easy searching. Finally, show the result. Include an architectural diagram. Post a link to the live working application. If you can't host it live, record a short video demonstrating how it works. You have to make it brain-dead simple for a busy hiring manager or recruiter to understand what you built and why it's impressive. You're not just showing them code. You're demonstrating your thought process, your problem-solving skills, and your understanding of business needs. That's what gets you the interview. And that brings us to the final walk across the bridge, the technical interview. This is what terrifies most people. They imagine a panel of stone-faced engineers asking impossible brain teasers. And while some interviews can be tough, they're usually not about tricking you. They are about one thing: risk mitigation. The company is trying to figure out if hiring you is a good bet. They want to see how you think, how you communicate, and how you handle problems when you don't know the answer. For a junior cloud role in the US, the interview process is typically broken into a few stages. First is the behavioral interview. They'll ask you questions like, tell me about a time you had to learn a new technology quickly, or describe a complex project you worked on. They are not just listening to your story. They are listening for a very specific format, the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. You set the scene: situation. Explain what you needed to accomplish, task. Describe the specific steps you took, action. And end with the quantifiable outcome, result. The same way you wrote your resume points. A good bootcamp will drill this into you through relentless mock interviews. Next comes the technical screening. This is where they test your foundational knowledge. What's the difference between an availability zone and a region in AWS? What's a VPC and why is it important? Explain the concept of IAM roles. They want to know that you have the core concepts down cold. You can't just have the certification. You have to be able to articulate these ideas clearly and concisely. Then, for many cloud roles comes the system design interview. This is the big one. They'll give you a vague prompt like, design the architecture for a simple photo sharing app. Or, how would you build a scalable website that can handle a spike in traffic? For a junior candidate, they do not expect you to produce a perfect, flawless architecture. They are testing your process. Do you ask clarifying questions first? How many users are we expecting? What's the budget? What are the key features? Do you start simple and build up? Do you consider things like security, cost, and reliability? You need a framework. You start with the requirements, sketch out a high-level design, then dive into specific components, explaining your choices and trade-offs along the way. I'd use a load balancer to distribute traffic, EC2 instances in an auto-scaling group for compute, and an RDS database for user data because it's managed and reliable. For the photos themselves, I'd use S3 because it's cheap and durable. This is where the hands-on projects from your bootcamp become your superpower. You're not just reciting theory from a textbook. You're talking about decisions you actually made. You can say, in my portfolio project, I used a serverless approach with Lambda and API Gateway for this exact reason, because it scaled automatically and I only paid for what I used. You're connecting theory to practice. You're proving you haven't just studied the cloud. You've built on it. This entire process, from the keyword-optimized resume to the story-driven portfolio to the structured interview answers, is a skill in itself. It's the meta skill of getting a job, and it's arguably just as important as knowing how to configure a security group. So let's talk about the other side of the coin. Because for every story of a bootcamp grad landing a six-figure job at a FANG company, there's another story, a quieter one, that doesn't make it into the marketing brochures. This is the part where we turn over the rock and look at what's underneath. We need to talk about the red flags, the pitfalls, and the outright scams that exist in the bootcamp industry. Because they are out there, and they prey on the exact kind of ambition and hope that drives someone to make a career change. The first and most glittering trap is the job guarantee. It sounds like the ultimate safety net, right? Pay us $20,000 and we guarantee you'll get a job or your money back. Seems like a no-brainer. But the devil, as always, is in the fine print. A job guarantee isn't a promise. It's a contract. A contract with clauses so specific, so demanding, that they can be incredibly difficult to fulfill. Think of it this way. A job guarantee is like a legal document written by a team of lawyers to protect the bootcamp, not you. It will often require you to apply to a specific number of jobs per week, say 10 or 15. You have to document every single application in their proprietary portal. You must attend every networking event they tell you to. You have to respond to their career coach within 24 hours. You might have to accept the very first job offer you receive, even if it's a 3-month contract role, 2 hours from your house, paying half of what you expected. If you fail to meet even one of these dozens of tiny requirements, if you apply to 9 jobs 1 week instead of 10, if you miss one email from your coach, the guarantee is void. Poof, gone. They are banking on you, a busy human being with a life, to slip up. And when you do, they are no longer on the hook. The guarantee was never about ensuring your success. It was a marketing tool designed to overcome your hesitation to pay their tuition. So if a bootcamp's primary sales pitch is its job guarantee, your alarm bells should be screaming. A good bootcamp sells its curriculum, its instructors, and its community. A weak bootcamp sells a gimmick. The second major red flag is the way they report their success metrics. You've seen the numbers plastered all over their websites. 93% of graduates find a job within 180 days. Sounds incredible, but that number is a masterpiece of statistical manipulation. First, you have to ask, what do they define as a job? Does that include a part-time minimum wage role? Does it include an unpaid internship? Does it include the graduate who went back to their old job as a barista but is now counted as employed? Many times the answer is yes. The goal is to get the employment number as high as possible, regardless of whether the job is actually in the tech industry or pays a living wage. But the more sinister trick is how they define a graduate. Let's imagine a bootcamp starts with a cohort of 100 students. The curriculum is incredibly difficult and the support is poor. By the end, 40 students have dropped out because they couldn't keep up or felt lost. Now only 60 students remain. Of those 60 who graduate, 54 find a job. The bootcamp can now truthfully claim a 90% employment rate for their graduates. Sounds amazing, but the reality is that only 54 out of the original 100 students ended up with a job. That's a 54% success rate. It's a completely different picture, isn't it? To combat this, some of the more reputable bootcamps adhere to reporting standards from organizations like Azure, the Council on Integrity in Results Reporting. They provide a standardized, transparent, and audited breakdown of their outcomes. They show you not just who got a job, but what kind of job, what the median salary was, and how many people dropped out. If a bootcamp doesn't provide a transparent Azure-style outcomes report, you have to ask yourself, what are they hiding? The third red flag is a stale or generic curriculum. The world of cloud computing moves at a terrifying speed. Amazon Web Services releases hundreds, sometimes thousands, of updates and new services every single year. What was best practice in 2022 is legacy in 2024. A bootcamp curriculum that hasn't been significantly updated in the last 12 months is teaching you history, not practical skills. You'd be learning to fight the last war. This is especially dangerous in cloud, where the landscape is so vast. A one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work. Does the curriculum focus heavily on modern high-demand skills? Are they teaching infrastructure as code with tools like Terraform or CloudFormation? Are they covering containerization with Docker and Kubernetes? Are they teaching serverless computing with AWS Lambda or Azure Functions? Or are they just teaching you the basics of launching a virtual machine and setting up a simple database, skills that were cutting edge a decade ago? You need to be a detective. Ask for the detailed syllabus. Ask the admissions counselor, when was this curriculum last updated, and what specific changes were made? If they give you a vague answer like, oh, we're constantly updating it, push back. Ask for specifics. If they can't tell you, it means they either don't know or they don't do it. A great bootcamp is proud of how current its curriculum is, and will be eager to show you exactly how they're teaching the skills that companies are hiring for right now. Finally, the fourth and perhaps most critical red flag is the instructor lottery. A bootcamp is not a product, it's a service. And the quality of that service is almost entirely dependent on the person standing at the front of the room, or on the other side of your Zoom call. You can have the best curriculum in the world, but with a mediocre instructor, it's worthless. A great instructor doesn't just recite slides, they provide context. They tell you war stories from their time in the industry. They explain why something is done a certain way, not just how. The danger is that some bootcamps hire professional instructors, people whose only job is teaching at bootcamps. They may have had a junior-level tech job 5 years ago, but they haven't been in the trenches since. They haven't felt the pressure of a production system going down at 3 a.m. They don't know what it's like to navigate the politics of a real engineering team. You want instructors who are practitioners, people who are currently working in the field or have very recent high-level experience. Before you enroll, find out exactly who will be teaching your cohort. Not a generic "our instructors are industry experts," but their actual names. Look them up on LinkedIn. Where have they worked? What did they do? How long have they been out of the industry? If you're paying a premium price, you deserve a premium educator. Don't settle for someone who is just one chapter ahead of you in the textbook. These four horsemen, the job guarantee fallacy, the misleading metrics, the stale curriculum, and the instructor lottery, are the biggest dangers you'll face when evaluating a bootcamp. But being aware of them isn't meant to scare you off entirely. It's meant to arm you. It turns you from a hopeful customer into a skeptical investigator. It gives you the power to ask the right questions, to see past the slick marketing, and to find the programs that are genuinely committed to your success, not just to their bottom line. Because those programs do exist. The challenge is knowing how to spot them. So let's arm you with the ultimate detector, a framework for cutting through the noise. Think of it as your personal green flag gauntlet. If a bootcamp can make it through these checkpoints, it's likely worth your time and your money. If it stumbles, you walk away. First, you need to look past the syllabus and x-ray the curriculum. They all promise to teach you AWS, Azure, or GCP. That's the brochure. But what's really under the hood? Ask this. Is the curriculum focused on just one cloud provider? Or does it teach foundational multi-cloud principles? A great program will likely specialize in one, say AWS for the certification, but it must teach you the underlying concepts of networking, storage, and compute that apply everywhere. Why? Because the real world isn't a one-cloud world. Your first job might be an AWS shop, but your second could be a multi-cloud environment with Azure and GCP. A bootcamp that only teaches you the AWS console is teaching you to be a button pusher, not an engineer. Next, and this is non-negotiable, you have to grill them on hands-on labs. Don't accept the phrase, "we have projects." That means nothing. You need to ask these specific questions. What percentage of the curriculum is dedicated to hands-on keyboard-to-console lab work? Are these labs follow-the-leader tutorials, or are they complex, real-world problem scenarios where you actually have to architect a solution from scratch? And then ask the killer question. Can you show me an example of a capstone project a recent graduate completed? A top-tier bootcamp will be proud to show you. They'll show you projects that involve building a scalable, fault-tolerant web application using infrastructure as code tools like Terraform, not just launching an EC2 instance by clicking a few buttons. If they get vague, if they can't produce an example, that's a massive red flag. Finally, for the curriculum, you need to scan for the holy trinity of modern cloud skills. Infrastructure as code, containers, and scripting. Does the curriculum have a significant, in-depth module on Terraform or CloudFormation? Do they cover Docker and Kubernetes not just as a vocab word, but with hands-on labs where you actually containerize an application and deploy it? And do they teach you at least basic scripting in Python or Bash so you can automate tasks? If a cloud bootcamp today doesn't heavily feature these three things, it's not preparing you for the current job market. It's preparing you for a job market that existed 5 years ago. Okay, checkpoint 2. Who is actually teaching you? The fanciest curriculum in the world is useless if it's taught by someone who's never actually worked in the field. You have the right to vet your instructors. Ask the admissions counselor. Can you tell me about the background of the instructors who would be teaching my cohort? Are they full-time teachers? Or are they current industry professionals? And then follow up with this. Could you share their LinkedIn profiles with me? Their reaction to this question tells you everything you need to know. A program with rockstar instructors who have senior cloud engineer or solutions architect on their resumes will be thrilled you asked. They know their staff is a key selling point. A program using underqualified staff will suddenly get very defensive about privacy policies. Remember, you're not just paying for information. You're paying for mentorship and access to experience from people who have walked the exact path you want to walk. This next one is the big one. The place where fantasy meets reality. Career services. This is where the most outrageous promises are made, so it's where you need to be the most skeptical. Let's start with the infamous job placement rate. A 95% placement rate sounds incredible, right? But it's often a meaningless, manipulated number. You need to become an auditor. Ask them, what is your precise definition of a job placement? Does that include a graduate who got a part-time minimum wage job at a computer repair shop? Does it include someone who was already employed and just got a tiny raise? Does it count if they got the job completely on their own with zero help from you? Then ask, over what time period is that 95% calculated? Is it 6 months after graduation? A year? And here is the ultimate question, the one that makes most of them squirm. Are your placement statistics audited by an independent third party? And if so, can I see the report? 99% of them will say no. But the 1% that says yes, that's a bootcamp that puts its money where its mouth is. Then there's the hiring partner claim. They'll flash logos of Google, Amazon, Microsoft. It looks impressive, but it's often just marketing fluff. In many cases, it just means they have a link to that company's public job board. You have to dig deeper. Ask, what does your partnership with Amazon actually entail? Can you give me a specific example of how it benefits graduates? How many students from your last cohort were actually hired by these partner companies as a direct result of your introduction? Don't let them give you a vague answer about opportunities. Demand specifics. The good programs will have actual relationships and can point to real people who got hired through their network. Now for the most powerful tool in your entire arsenal. The one that no slick salesperson can fake. The alumni network. This is your truth serum. Make this direct request to the admissions advisor. I'm seriously considering your program. Would it be possible for you to connect me with 2 or 3 recent graduates who are now working in a cloud role? I'd love to ask them a few questions about their experience. A great bootcamp will have a list of happy alumni ready and willing to talk. They'll be proud of their success stories. A shady bootcamp will give you a dozen excuses. Oh, for privacy reasons, we can't do that. Our alumni are all very busy people. That's a blaring alarm bell. If they can't find a single graduate willing to speak positively about their experience, what does that tell you about the hundreds of others? And don't stop there. Do your own detective work. Go on LinkedIn. Search for the bootcamp's name under the education section of user profiles. Find people who graduated 6 to 12 months ago. What are their job titles now? Are they cloud engineers and DevOps specialists? Or are their headlines still aspiring cloud professional? How long did it take them to change their title after the bootcamp ended? This is raw, unfiltered data. It's the single most accurate picture you can possibly get of a bootcamp's real-world results, completely independent of their marketing department. Finally, after all the data and all the questions, it comes down to a gut check. And the biggest indicator here is pressure. Are they using high-pressure sales tactics? Is there a countdown timer on the special discount? Are they telling you that spots are almost gone and you have to sign up right now? A reputable educational institution does not operate like a used car dealership. They are confident in their value. They want you to do your research. They want you to be sure. If you feel rushed, if you feel pressured, that is your gut telling you to run. And you need to listen to it. And of course, read the financing agreement. Every single word. Especially if it's an income share agreement. Understand the payment cap, the repayment term, and exactly what income level triggers the payments. What happens if you take a lower-paying job outside of tech just to pay the bills? Do you still have to pay? You have to know the answers before your signature ever touches that paper. This isn't just a checklist. This is a shift in power. You are no longer just a potential customer. You are an investigator. You are a journalist. You are an auditor. By asking these tough, specific, and informed questions, you force these schools to be accountable. You separate the ones with great marketing from the ones with great outcomes. And you find the partners who will genuinely invest in your journey, not just take your money for the ride. So let's say you've done it. You've asked all the hard questions, you've vetted the programs, and you've chosen your bootcamp. You've just survived the most intense 12, 16, or 24 weeks of your life. It was a fire hose of information: VPCs, S3 buckets, IAM roles, Lambda functions, Docker containers, Kubernetes pods. It's all swirling in your head. You've built the projects, you've passed the final exam, and you've earned your certificate of completion. You feel a sense of accomplishment that is massive, and you should. You've done something incredibly difficult. But this is where the real work begins. This is the moment the bootcamp bubble pops. Inside the bootcamp, you had structure. You had a schedule from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You had instructors on call. You had a cohort of peers going through the exact same struggle, a built-in support system. The path was clear. Learn this module, build this project, pass this test. But the day after graduation, you wake up, and for the first time in months, there is no schedule. There is no instructor. There is no clear path. There is only a vast, intimidating, and often silent digital landscape called the tech job market. And your new full-time job, the one that doesn't pay you yet, is figuring out how to conquer it. The job hunt is not an epilogue to your bootcamp experience. It is the final, most difficult, and most important module. And it's the one you have to complete almost entirely on your own. Now, many bootcamps will try to soften this reality with a very seductive marketing promise: the job guarantee. It sounds like the ultimate safety net. Get a job within 6 months, or your money back. Seems like a no-brainer. But you have to understand that this guarantee is not a promise. It's a contract. And you need to read the fine print of that contract with the intensity of a lawyer dissecting a key piece of evidence. Typically, to remain eligible for that guarantee, you are required to perform a grueling set of tasks. You might have to apply to 10, 15, or even 20 jobs per week every single week. You must meticulously log every application in their proprietary portal. You have to check in with your career coach weekly, sometimes more. You have to be willing to accept a job offer in any metropolitan area they deem acceptable, which might be thousands of miles from your home. You must be willing to accept a role with a title that might not even have cloud in it. If you miss a single check-in, if you fail to log one application, if you turn down one offer because it's in a city you don't want to live in, poof. The guarantee is void. The job guarantee is not designed to guarantee you a job. It's designed to protect the bootcamp's finances by enforcing a high-volume, no-exceptions job search strategy. It forces you into a rhythm of activity, which is good, but it's a blunt instrument. It doesn't account for quality applications for networking for a strategic approach. It's a numbers game, and if you fail to play by their exact rules, you're out. This brings us to the core, uncomfortable truth about breaking into cloud computing. Unlike software development, which has a somewhat established pipeline for junior developers, the world of cloud and DevOps has a glaring paradox. There are very few true entry-level, junior cloud engineer positions. Think about it. Companies are entrusting you with the keys to their entire infrastructure, their databases, their applications, their customer data. It's all running on the cloud. They are incredibly hesitant to give that level of access and responsibility to someone with zero real-world production experience. They're not looking for someone who knows what AWS S3 is. They're looking for someone who has recovered a corrupted S3 bucket at 3 a.m. while the entire company was breathing down their neck. They want experience. So how do you, the bootcamp grad, get experience if you need experience to get the job? This is the chasm you have to cross. Your bootcamp certificate gets you to the edge of the chasm. It does not get you across. You have to build the bridge. And you build it piece by piece with 3 specific types of material. First, a portfolio that screams competence, not just completion. The projects you built in your bootcamp are your starting point, your table stakes. But everyone from your cohort has those exact same projects. You need to go further. You need to build something new on your own that solves a real-world problem, even a small one. Don't just build another 3-tier web application following a tutorial. Instead, find an open-source project on GitHub and build a full CI/CD pipeline for it using AWS Code Pipeline or GitHub Actions. Or create a personal project that uses a serverless architecture with Lambda, API Gateway, and DynamoDB, and then write a detailed blog post about the cost optimization choices you made. Containerize an existing application with Docker and deploy it to a managed Kubernetes cluster like EKS or GKE. These projects do 2 things. First, they prove you can apply your knowledge independently, outside the hand-holding environment of the bootcamp. Second, they give you something concrete and impressive to talk about in an interview. When a hiring manager asks, "Tell me about a time you solved a difficult problem," you don't talk about a class assignment. You talk about the night you spent debugging a YAML file in your Kubernetes deployment or the IAM policy that took you 6 hours to get right. That is the beginning of experience. Second, you build your bridge by targeting adjacent roles. Your first job in tech might not have the glorious title of cloud engineer, and that is perfectly okay. The goal is to get your foot in the door. The goal is to get paid to learn. Look for titles like Cloud Support Analyst, Technical Support Engineer, NOC Technician, DevOps Support, or Site Reliability Engineer Intern. These roles are often the front lines. You'll be troubleshooting customer issues, responding to alerts, and working with the very cloud services you learned about. You'll be immersed in a real production environment, seeing how a business actually uses the cloud. In a cloud support role, you might spend a year helping customers debug their EC2 instances and S3 permissions. That's not a detour. That is an invaluable, paid apprenticeship. After a year or 18 months in a role like that, with real-world stories to tell and a proven track record, making the jump to a full-blown cloud engineer role becomes exponentially easier. Third, you build your bridge through strategic networking. I know everyone says network, and it feels vague and transactional. Let's make it specific. Your goal is not to ask for a job. Your goal is to collect information and build relationships. Here's a simple, repeatable plan. Go on LinkedIn. Find 20 people who have the job title you want at companies that interest you. Draft a simple, respectful, non-demanding message. Something like, "Hi name, my name is your name, and I'm making a career change into cloud computing. I saw your profile and was really impressed by your work at company. I know you're busy, but I was wondering if you might have 15 minutes in the coming weeks for a brief virtual coffee chat? I'd love to hear a bit about your journey and ask for your advice on breaking into the field." Send 20 of those. 15 will ignore you, for we'll say they're too busy. but one will say yes. And in that 15-minute conversation, you don't ask for a job. You ask smart questions. What was the hardest part about your transition into cloud? What skills do you see as most valuable on your team right now? What's one thing you wish you knew when you were starting out? At the end, you thank them for their time and ask one final question. Is there anyone else you think it would be valuable for me to talk to? You are not just asking for a job. You are building a network of advocates. You're gathering field intelligence. And when a position does open up on their team, who do you think they'll remember? The random resume in the pile, or the proactive, curious person who respectfully asked for their advice a month ago? This journey, the post-bootcamp job hunt, is an emotional roller coaster. You will face rejection. You will send out 100 applications and hear back from 5. You will have great interviews and then get ghosted. You will feel imposter syndrome, like a physical weight on your shoulders. This is normal. Every single person who has made this transition has felt it. The key is to reframe it. Every rejection is data. Every failed interview is practice. Your bootcamp taught you the technology. The job hunt teaches you resilience. It forces you to refine your story, to polish your projects, and to truly own the knowledge you've gained. It's a trial by fire, but it's the fire that forges a bootcamp graduate into a cloud professional. The ones who succeed aren't necessarily the ones who were smartest in class. They're the ones who treated the job search with the same intensity and discipline as the bootcamp itself, who built their bridge across the experience chasm, piece by painful piece. So what does that bridge actually look like? It's not just one big, grand project. It's 100 small, deliberate actions. It's spending a weekend not just watching a tutorial on Terraform, but actually writing the code to spin up and tear down a 3-tier web application in AWS, and then writing a detailed blog post about the errors you encountered and how you solved them. It's going to a local tech meetup, not just to eat free pizza, but to ask an experienced DevOps engineer a specific, intelligent question about their CI/CD pipeline. It's finding an open-source project on GitHub that uses cloud services, and instead of just staring at the code, you clone the repository, get it running on your own account, and submit a pull request to fix a typo in the documentation. That's a piece of the bridge. It's small, but it's real. It's tangible proof that you can navigate a professional code base and contribute value. The bootcamp gives you the blueprints and the raw materials. You are the construction crew. You are the project manager. You are the quality assurance inspector. The bootcamp is the catalyst, not the complete chemical reaction. So let's get to the final verdict. After all of this, is a cloud computing bootcamp worth it for a US tech career? The answer is a resounding definitive: it depends. And that dependency has almost nothing to do with the curriculum, the instructors, or the brand name on the certificate. It has everything to do with you. A bootcamp is worth it if you understand it as a starting line, not a finish line. It is worth it if you are prepared to work harder in the 3 months after you graduate than you did during the 3 months of the program. It is worth it if you are willing to embrace the identity of a builder, a problem solver, and a relentless learner, not just a student who passed some exams. If you think you can pay your $20,000, sit back, absorb information, and have a 6-figure job offer fall into your lap, then you must save your money. You will be sorely disappointed. It will be one of the worst financial investments of your life. But if you see that money as an investment in yourself, a way to buy structure, accountability, and a curated path through the overwhelming noise of the tech world, then it can have an ROI that makes the stock market look like a savings account. Think about the 2 archetypes of bootcamp graduates. Let's call them Certificate Alex and Builder Ben. Certificate Alex graduates with honors. He aced every test. His capstone project was a perfect replica of the one the instructor demonstrated. As soon as he gets his certificate, he polishes his resume, listing every technology he heard mentioned in class: Kubernetes, Docker, Python, Jenkins, AWS, Azure, GCP. He uses a resume blasting service to apply to 300 jobs in the first week. His cover letter is a generic template. When he gets a rare interview, the hiring manager asks him, "Can you tell me about a time you had to troubleshoot a failing deployment?" Alex talks theoretically about checking logs and network configurations, repeating what he learned in a lecture. He doesn't get the job. Weeks turn into months. His confidence plummets. He starts to believe the bootcamp was a scam and the market is impossible. Now let's look at Builder Ben. Ben struggled with some of the concepts. He barely passed his final exam. His capstone project was messy, but it was his own idea, and he tried to implement a feature that wasn't in the curriculum. He broke it a dozen times. The day after graduation, Ben's real work begins. He doesn't mass apply to jobs. Instead, he picks one cloud provider, AWS, and decides to go deep. He builds a new project from scratch, a serverless application that uses Lambda, API Gateway, and DynamoDB to power a simple URL shortener. It's not revolutionary, but it works. He buys a domain name for $10 and deploys it so he has a live URL to show people. He records a 5-minute screen capture of himself explaining the architecture and posts it on LinkedIn. He writes a detailed README file on GitHub, including a diagram he made himself. When Ben applies for a job, he customizes his resume to highlight the skills they're asking for. In his cover letter, he doesn't say, "I know about serverless." He says, "I recently built and deployed a serverless URL shortener using Lambda and API Gateway. I ran into a challenge with IAM permissions for the Lambda function, and I solved it by creating a more specific execution role." You can see the project live at this URL and view the source code here. Who do you think gets the job? It's not a trick question. Ben gets the job. Alex is still wondering why no one is calling him back. Alex sold a certificate. Ben demonstrated value. The market doesn't pay for certificates. It pays for value. The hard truth is this: the bootcamp's job is to give you a map. It is not their job to walk the path for you. Your goal should be to make your bootcamp education the least interesting thing on your resume. It should be buried under a list of compelling projects, GitHub contributions, and real-world problem solving. And what about the money? Let's be blunt. $15,000, $20,000, even $25,000 is a staggering amount of money. But what is the alternative? A 4-year computer science degree can cost over $200,000 in 4 years of your life. Self-study is free, but it can take years of unstructured, frustrating effort to piece together the right knowledge, with no guarantee you're even learning the right things. The bootcamp is the middle path. It's a high-intensity, high-cost accelerator. You are trading money for time and structure. You're paying to have the curriculum curated for you, to have access to instructors who can answer your questions, and to be surrounded by a cohort of people who are on the same mission. You're paying for the pressure. That pressure, if you use it correctly, can turn the carbon of your ambition into the diamond of a new career. So the ultimate question isn't, is a cloud bootcamp worth it? The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to make it worth it? Are you willing to be Builder Ben? Are you willing to show up before class, stay late after, and spend your weekends building, failing, and building again? Are you willing to be humble, to feel lost, to fight through the confusion until a concept finally clicks? Are you willing to put yourself out there, network, and tell your story, even when you feel like an imposter? Because if the answer to those questions is yes, then a bootcamp isn't just worth it. It is a launch pad. It is the single most effective way to pivot into a career that is shaping the future of our world. The cloud is not a trend. It is the foundation of modern technology. From the streaming service you watch, to the AI tools changing our lives, to the systems that will power the next generation of innovation, it all runs on the cloud. The demand for people who can build, secure, and manage this infrastructure is not going away. It's accelerating. This isn't just about getting a job. It's about stepping into a field with decades of growth ahead of it, where your skills will compound in value year after year. Don't choose a bootcamp based on a hollow promise of a guaranteed job. Choose it based on whether it will give you the tools, the environment, and the push you need to become a builder. And then show up and do the work. Build your bridge. Lay every single piece with intention, because the career waiting for you on the other side is more than worth the effort. It's a chance to build the future, and you can be a part of it.